Welcome to the Mobile Armored Podcast Show, the podcast that joins the NAACP in condemning this episode of Mask. I am Adam Moore, alongside my co-host and best friend, PJ McNerney. How's it going, PJ?
I'm doing well, Adam. It's funny, we've just come off the last episode where we've made comments about the bifurcated nature of Mask, where it's sometimes like, what the hell's the story doing? Combined with some really cool stuff. It's fascinating and horrifying when you hit an episode where one aspect overwhelms the other in dramatic fashion. And what's really unfortunate, there's actually a lot of cool things inside of it that are driven by at Mach 1.
100%. Let's set the scene for a second. It's episode 39, Green Nightmare, and the log line is VENOM agent Vanessa Warfield sabotages Matt Trakker's private jet, which crashes into the jungles of New Guinea while returning a priceless gem his father was entrusted with. The rest of the Mask team goes to rescue them. So on the surface, that's a really cool episode.
Yeah.
But now getting to your point, there's a lot of cool world building and Mask lore in this episode, but there's hardly any Mask in the episode at all. I find that extremely frustrating. Like, I don't know if there's a single Mask vehicle that actually touches the ground in this episode. And are any masks ever put on?
Yes to both, but only at the very end. It's a different episode. It misses. And because it's different, it could have worked, but it doesn't. It's missing a lot of the core elements. So we don't get the team assembly. We don't get the escape scenes. We don't get Thunderhawk. There's a lot of things that are just absent here. And again, there are so many places where in isolation, it actually works really, really well. There's a lot of smart stuff going on. It's unfortunately overwhelmed by this terrible, pervasive racism and native representation that is just over the top.
Yeah, I mean, we open on a stormy night in the jungle. We're not quite sure where yet, but of course we'll find out it's in New Guinea. And I am not even sure how to describe the insanity that's going on. So we have brown-skinned tribespeople dancing in masks, more like the bag that Sandman wears in Batman over their heads. And they're in this temple bowing down to the chief who says to a pagan idol, "Behold, the planets move to their places. The prophecy shall be fulfilled." And that right there needs some unpacking, I have to say. We may be kind of, jumping a little bit further ahead in the episode with this, but the prophecy is what? That the man from Broken Bird will return a star of life, okay? So that man is Matt Trakker's dad. The Star of Life is a crystal that powers the Mask helmets. But is that a prophecy or just a reminder? Like, hey, by the way, I'll be back someday to return this. Aren't prophecies kind of more prophetic as opposed to circling a date on a calendar?
They should be. And it would be nice to know what is, like, the Sankara stones in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom were what brought the fertility to the land. It's what gave the sort of vitality. And when they were taken, everything went to shit.
Right.
There's nothing of that here. Like, as far as we know, it's like our idol will have both eyes back is kind of like the understanding that I got out of this, which was like, okay, yeah, I get it. Like when something's busted and you lend someone to someone, a couple decades later, you want it back.
Yeah.
I guess I would have prophesized, Adam, that one of these days I will get you your birthday gift of the autobiography of Lee Iacocca. So that's my prophecy to you, okay?
It has been prophesized. And so I will pray for that day to come.
Well,
when my birthday gift arrives.
I hope the way you
the mail.
the way you pray is wearing grass loincloths and with a mud helmet on your head. Now, to be fair, like, it is going to be very difficult for any defense here, Adam, okay? I'm going to say it's impossible. But in terms of, hey, what do these people actually look like? It's actually a fairly one-to-one representation based on whatever National Geographic photo they picked that day. Should they have done this? Different question.
Just to kind of wrap up what's happening here with the tribe, after saying soon man from broken bird will return a star of life, the chief opens a box and pulls a picture out of it of a white man that looks a lot like Matt Trakker, only with a very thin mustache, standing next to a dark-skinned tribesman. And he puts that picture in front of the idol as an offering. We then cut to the Trakker mansion, and we're in one of the multiple labs that exists in the Trakker mansion. And Alex is hard at work electrocuting a crystal. And he cries, "At last, a perfect crystal." Matt explains that this crystal is the power amplifier we use to charge our masks. Alex says that for years they've been trying to duplicate it. And Matt explains to Scott that they've been doing this because of a promise that your grandfather made many years ago.
Okay, so just slam the brakes on right there, because this is actually kind of amazing, and we're not going to touch this.
Yeah.
Which is, now we actually have intimate knowledge of how the masks work.
For many episodes of this podcast, we have talked about what is the power source. Is it radioactive? If so, have all the mask agents been irradiated?
Right.
So now the radioactive properties of this crystal have not been identified, but they're all in a room with it, so either Matt still doesn't care or it's not radioactive. Nonetheless, we now know this is what powers mask.
Right.
Very cool.
So but did Matt's father actually understand the power that was in that crystal? Did he invent the technology for masks? And we're never going to see this, but would the Mudmen masks actually be an inspiration for the masks they wear?
Yeah.
And what does this mean for Venom? How do they charge their masks? Do they have a duplicate crystal?
That's what I was saying at the top of the pod. Like, there's so much cool world building here, and it's so frustrating. They do nothing with it at all. Matt's dad gets a crystal of power.
Right.
From a tribesperson. We will learn later that the dad, and then I guess Matt later on, promised to use it for the good of the world.
Yes. Right.
So basically, you get a crystal and say, thanks, I'm going to use it for the good of the world. What does that mean? There's another world where this is like Matt's number one dime from DuckTales.
Yes.
Like, he built his billion-dollar empire on this crystal of power. There's so many ways this could go, but he just gets a crystal and away we go. When did they realize that this crystal had such great power?
Right.
And does Miles know about it?
Right. Again, they made a choice here, and we're going to be roasting that choice for the Mudmen throughout the episode. The masks they wear are made of mud. A really cool thing to tie it together would be, what if that crystal, or its sister crystal, charges those mud masks to do something? Again, like, hey, we can inspire this thing and connect these dots together.
The fact is, to do this episode right, you would need a two-parter.
Absolutely.
You really would need a full 44 minutes of screen time to tell this story. Maybe the original writer had that idea.
Maybe.
And the story editor, when it came in, was like, no, that's not what we do here. I'm just going to chop it up into an episode that fits our 22-minute format. Maybe somewhere in some landfill in Burbank, there are decomposing script pages that answer all these questions. But unfortunately, we're left with this.
The script's name is Rosebud.
Well, we cut to the Trakker Mansion library. And Matt shows Scott his father's journal that catalogs his encounters with the New Guinea Mudmen. So there's a Buddy Hawks nomination, I think, for the Mudmen. Did you do any research on whether the term mudmen is from National Geographic or anything?
I think I did, and I think it's not obviously the right name. But if you go to Wikipedia, they're called the Aro Mudmen.
Aro Mud. Yep.
And so I'll say that the encounter of the Mudmen, or even calling them this, isn't in and of itself a Buddy Hawks nomination, I think. But that's all I'm giving the writer. Again, like, we're about to hit an avalanche of Buddy Hawks at this point in time.
Yeah.
It's like, fine, you've encountered a native tribe. I'm almost certain the depiction of their religious practices at the top was his Buddy Hawks worthy across the board. But, this is the notion of I encountered a native tribe. I'm like, okay, that's not a Buddy Hawks.
Okay.
But hold on. Next breath.
Scott says, those masks sure are ugly. And T-Bob says, yeah, I bet for Halloween they scare each other by wearing suits and ties. And Matt chuckles.
And there's your Buddy Hawks right there. Yeah. Right, so we'll call balls and strikes, but it's like, thanks, T-Bob, for reminding us what you've been programmed to do.
Yep. Now, we learned that 30 years ago, Warago, the native person in the picture with Matt's dad, and Matt's father saved each other's lives. What do you think about that image, by the way, of Matt's dad? First of all, it's a spitting image of Matt.
It is.
Except for that thin mustache.
It's an interesting art direction and maybe a slight bit of laziness. You just say like, he looks like Matt exactly, but with Errol Flynn mustache.
Yep.
You don't see too many mustaches like that in the show. In fact, there's only one I'm aware of that even closely looks like that. Miles Mayhem.
True, but Miles is very bushy.
Oh.
Now, if he started with an Errol Flynn one and it just kind of over the years grew, then sure. But are you saying that maybe Miles is Matt's dad?
That's a theory we held on earlier. This episode seems to debunk that.
We don't know for sure that Matt's dad is dead. What Matt later on tells Warago is, my father is no longer with us.
Yes.
So it could mean no longer with us as in Mask.
Right.
He's now with Venom.
Right.
So let's leave that door open.
Let's leave it open.
All right. We cut to a flashback, and we see Matt's father's plane go down during a cyclone in New Guinea. Warago rescues Matt's dad from the plane, and then the plane's gas tank explodes. And Warago gets seriously injured by the explosion. I love the trading places there. It's like, I'll save you from the plane. Now I have to save you from my plane that exploded while you were saving me. But now Matt's dad nursed Warago back to health. And in gratitude, Warago gave Matt's dad the tribe's most precious possession, the crystal. Don't they have two crystals, though? One in each socket of the eyes of their idol.
Yeah.
So
I want to touch on that in a second, but I do want to say there's a series of images here, and I'd like to do a little bit of a game. So there's one where Warago is laid on the floor of a cave, and Matt's dad is kneeling over him. And then another where Matt's dad is nursing him by giving a cup of water or something like that. And another where Warago is kind of luxuriously reclining while Andrew Trakker brings a bunch of fruit. Let me ask you a question, Adam. Let's say instead of Warago, it was a scantily clad native woman. No judgment, but what would we be interpreting is going on between those two characters? And why wouldn't we assume the same here? No judgment. They just saved each other's lives.
I mean, this is definitely the beginning of a love story.
Yeah, this is their love story. Mm-hmm. Dreamweaver could be playing right now for these two.
Yeah, and I'll point out, too, the assortment of fruit that Matt's dad pulls in. He's got bananas, papayas, oranges, looks like grapes. What jungle are they in that has this cornucopia? It's like, it seems like he went to the grocery store and came back.
Well, he really wanted to make sure that Warago was well fed and felt satisfied.
Warago's like, no, I'm fine. I think it's time to go. He's like, no, let's stay here in this cave together. You and I. Who else do we need in this world but the two of us?
I mean, look, they had a traumatic event, very intense event happen. They both nearly died. And so I think they're latching on to that preciousness of life and what's in front of them.
If only. It's just society tore them apart.
Society tore them apart in so many ways. It was the 1950s or 60s. It was a different time. One little comment on the crystal being given that had occurred to me much later on, which was assuming that Warago is giving this crystal to Andrew. Is there an implication that, listen, I saved your life, you saved mine, but my life is so much more important than yours, so I must give you this crystal in compensance to balance the scales here?
That's a great point.
Hey, I'm the chief. You're some random white guy. Here's the crystal.
So Warago saves Matt's dad. Then Matt's dad saves Warago, who, by the way, his life wouldn't be in danger if he hadn't tried to save Matt's life in the first place.
True.
So then Matt's dad keeps him imprisoned in a cave for days, weeks, we don't know, to quote-unquote nurse him back to health.
Oh, I see. So this is a ransom.
I think he's like, I nursed you back to health. I could have left you there to die. What are you going to give me? Warago does give him this crystal. And Matt's explaining to Scott, he's kind of like wrapping up the explanation, is that Warago trusted Matt's father to use the crystal to benefit mankind. And Matt promised that he'd return it to Warago after he learned the secret of its power.
What power?
Right.
Wait, what's the power? This is a frustrating bit about the script because it reverses the facts coming into evidence, because we know the power now by virtue of the fact that it charges the masks, but what proof of there was back then? So it's like, it's an out of order operation. Also, it's interesting. Matt promised Warago, and since Warago asks about Matt's dad later on, it actually presumes that Matt met Warago with his dad.
Or they went back another time.
That's what I mean. They went back another time, like in between the first encounter and this one.
What do you think happened in that meeting? Like, hey, Warago, here's my son. Haven't unlocked the secret yet. I would have called, but you have no phones here, so I had to come and tell you that in person.
What's great, we could actually add one more thing to that meeting, because both Warago and Matt have a picture, identical picture, which means
that's true.
Andrew took the picture, got the film developed with duplicates, and then either with Matt or later on by himself came back to give a picture to Warago.
So he definitely had a moment. He's like, remember the cave? Remember those times? Do you ever think about it?
What if we stayed there?
Imagine life would have been so much different, Warago. Different. As he looks down at his son. Well, back to the Trakker library, and Matt says, so how about it, Scott? Want to take a trip to New Guinea? Scott says, very excitedly, we're going to explore a real jungle. And I don't understand why he's so excited, because this is not the first time they've explored a jungle.
So I think he's excited because Matt has asked him as a father, and Scott knows he's not going to be left in the care of someone while Matt sleeps with a floozy.
Okay.
Because Scott leaps up into Matt's arms, and Matt looks actually quite fatherly in that moment.
And notice, though, he doesn't hug Scott.
I noticed that, too.
Like, Scott jumps up and wraps his arm around Matt's neck, and Matt holds onto the book and just kind of smiles. Interesting. A child touching me. Fascinating. T-Bob has to throw in his 2 cents here, and he says, I get nervous when I see crocodile in the dictionary. And Scott and Matt laugh. And I'm going to go ahead and nominate this for a Roy Batty Award for Scott and Matt laughing at T-Bob's fears.
100%. Like, just always putting them down.
We cut to Matt flying his awesome high-tech jet to New Guinea. I'm surprised, though, he's not flying Thunderhawk.
Yeah, this is the first time in a very long time we have no Thunderhawk in this episode. And I, the distance from Denver to Papua New Guinea is 7,600 miles. At Mach 1, it would take roughly 10 hours. So I was presuming he just didn't want to sit in his mask outfit for that long.
Maybe. But, you know, think about this. It's an episode of Mask. We've seen no masks yet. I mean, it started like an episode of Mask, a very culturally inappropriate representation of a native tribe. We meet Alex. We're in a lab. We're doing crystal science stuff, but there's been no mask vehicles, no mask helmets, no mention of mask really at all. And to transport them to the location for the episode is a vehicle we've never seen before, and I'm going to go ahead and place a wager we'll never see again, which is Matt's private jet that for some reason he likes to fly himself. I mean, I'll give him that. It's a cool jet. He likes to fly stuff. It's fun for him.
Yeah.
But how is this an episode of Mask, aside from the fact that these are characters who have appeared in Mask before?
It's an episode of Mask because we saw masked mudmen at the top.
And there was the theme song at the beginning, which clued us in.
Yeah. Oh.
Imagine if, it's in syndication, right, as a kid. So imagine if this is the first episode you tune into. Do you want to watch another episode of this show?
I just assume it's about some billionaire and his son getting into trouble with their robot all the time.
How confusing would it be at the tail end of the episode? A big jet shows up with a semi-truck in it that shoots lasers down.
It's true.
You're like an 8-year-old kid eating your Lucky Charms after school, watching the show, and you're like, what is going on here?
It's a good point, huh?
They land in New Guinea and go through customs. It turns out the Prime Minister's office alerted customs that Matt would be arriving. It must be very nice to be a billionaire.
I would love to hear that call where Matt's like, hey, Jerry, guess what? I'm coming into town. Just so you know, I'm just swinging in, going to do some stuff, so I'll be bouncing through the airport.
I will alert customs immediately.
Right.
Probably assuming that Matt is bringing in weapons of mass destruction with him, as he usually does. But the next line from the customs agent is, I understand you're bringing in an extremely rare gemstone. So the prime minister in that same conversation, if they asked, well, why do we need to let this guy in so quickly? The prime minister would have said, because he's bringing in an extremely rare gemstone. Bizarre. Why would the prime minister's office tell anyone this?
It's on the off chance they frisk him and find this gemstone. It's just so you know, in case anyone gets out of line, it's a gemstone, it's rare, let him go. My only thought was, we know in a second that this agent's on the take. Maybe it's possible that the contact in the PM's office is on the take as well, because the PM's not going to call customs.
The agent says, I'll expedite your documents immediately. And once again, must be very nice.
Private jet flying wherever you want, get to the front of the line, be treated with respect all the time. It's great being a billionaire.
By the way, while they're in line in customs, just want to point out that an insect crawls into T-Bob, which causes him to start giggling. This will become quote-unquote important later on in the episode. I'm always curious, though. I feel like this has happened once before, maybe twice before with T-Bob. Doesn't seem like he's sealed very well.
It's true. And this is also a weird choice on the part of the writer to do this. Why? That's my question to you.
Yeah, and we'll get to the big payoff of it, and I think once again we'll ask why. Well, as you alluded to, the customs agent goes into a back room and meets with Sly Rax. And Sly gets rough with the guy.
What's great about this sequence is the guy says, oh yeah, Matt Trakker's here with the gem. Without saying a fucking word, Sly pushes him against the wall. It's a really hard push. It's just he's angry. It's what kind of gem? It's Sly, why do you care, man? Come on.
Do you know what kind of gem it is, Sly? Why does it matter? But yeah, the agent responds, I didn't ask. I didn't want him to get suspicious. What about my money?
So in my mind, it was not asking actually in order to stay conspicuous actually makes a lot of sense to me. It also occurred to me, hey, Sly, Miles, Vanessa, why not just kidnap the billionaire?
Yeah.
It doesn't even matter that he's the leader of Mask. It's wait, we have a billionaire. Let's just kidnap him.
Meanwhile, Vanessa, undercover as a maintenance worker, places an override device on Matt's jet.
Okay, this was actually one of the most unbelievable parts of the episode for me. Vanessa as an undercover maintenance worker, because she would get hit on by everyone on the staff. Cliff would be a much better choice here.
Also with her flaming red hair.
Yes. Yes.
Hey, You don't look familiar.
Unless, had she been in this job for a number of weeks to get undercover?
There's no way that Vanessa Warfield would agree to anything like that. I think Cliff is absolutely the right choice for this. I don't know why it was Vanessa. But anyways, we're back in the air, and suddenly the steering goes out on the jet, as predicted. And now we cut to Manta following behind with Rax and Vanessa inside. Miles tells them to follow closely. He doesn't want any mistakes. And Vanessa says to Sly, who is sitting next to her, I'm sitting next to the world's biggest mistake. Ouch!
On a couple of different reads of that line, I was wondering, is she saying that whatever happened between the two of them was a mistake?
Is she saying that adding him to the Venom team was a mistake? Is she saying the fact that he was born at all was a mistake? That's where my head went. And I felt really, really bad for Sly.
I had actually interpreted it as it was a mistake for her to get drunk that night with him and have relations.
Okay. Well, I think they all fit, probably.
All the above.
Matt asks Scott to disengage the autopilot by sending him to this computer room in the back of the jet. Scott goes in there and competently knows exactly what to do, which is proof that Scott is a genius.
It's true. Also, that computer room's insane.
Yeah.
What
kind? I mean, is this Air Force One? Do they have? Let's actually talk about it. I would assume Matt has some pretty impressive countermeasures on his private jet.
But if so, wouldn't he be able to counteract whatever they've got?
Yeah, I agree. Why does his private jet need? It's not really a computer room. It actually looks like it's a bit of a boiler room. Is this a steam-powered private jet?
It's true.
But rather than, I guess, press a few buttons, Scott and T-Bob pull a couple of wires. Autopilot is disengaged. Matt regains control. However, the bug that crawled inside of T-Bob earlier causes him to go haywire, and he kind of pulls all sorts of wires out, shorts out the plane's computer, and they're going down.
Yeah. Once again, this bug bit's a bit contrived for the entire episode, and also unnecessary. It seemed like there was so many other ways to bring that plane down.
How about Manta, which has lasers on it? Fire at the jet. That would have worked too. Again, it's an episode of Mask, folks. Let's have a Mask episode. Anyways, Sly and Vanessa have a lover's quarrel inside of Manta, causing one of the wings to get damaged. Vanessa calls Miles and states that Manta is out and they have to meet back at the airfield. Folks, PJ puts the best little Easter eggs in the rundown. You've yet to catch me, but one of these days, I'm going to give some inaccurate information about what happens in the episode. Well, anyways, Matt's plane crash lands, stopping short of going over a cliff, but they survive. But then the natives show up and greet them with blow darts. And as the natives start to approach the plane, T-Bob says, "Go away. We already gave it the office." Why?
I don't know. If it wasn't such a non sequitur, I would nominate it as a Buddy Hawks. It is so many steps removed from what it ever is supposed to mean. It's
It makes no sense. But now the locals start pushing the plane over the cliff.
Why?
No, exactly. Why are they no rules have been set up for this tribe. You know how there's that island off the coast of, it's India, Pakistan, Bangladesh area. There's this island where there's this indigenous tribe that's never been met by the developed world. Anyone who's ever approached has been fired at by poisonous darts. So there's actually never been any true interaction between them. This is not that tribe. I'm trying to figure out why, because earlier the prophecy about the broken bird crashing from above was spoken of. Is this not a broken bird from the sky?
So I think what we'll come to know really quickly, it's a different tribe. And again, you're 100% right. There really is no, everything is inferred. Yeah. So what Venom's about to do to Belloc these guys, at this point, Venom hasn't shown up. So the best we've got is this chief doesn't want this hunk of metal on his lawn. And so therefore, it's that, that does not belong here. I don't care who's inside. Just get it gone.
Well, the plane does go falling off the cliff. They all go down, falling to their doom. At least they're all going to die together. But I really got to wonder what's going to happen.
I don't know. I don't know.
We'll find out after these messages.
We've got him in sight. Hold on, Mask will be right back. Now watch what Mask does.
We're back. When we left you, a group of natives pushed Matt's private jet off a cliff, sent Matt, Scott, and T-Bob falling to their doom. They hit the bottom. They're dead. Who will carry on the Mask mission? And that becomes the question.
Gloria
for the
Baker
remainder of
will
episode.
have to deal with the loss of her husband and stepchild through the billions of dollars that she's just inherited.
Yeah, and if she takes over Mask, she'll have the Venom problem solved in one episode.
Yes, she'll have a lot of problems. I feel like she'll deal with Venom in one episode and then take on something with a little more meat, like the Iran-Contra scandal.
Yeah.
You know, just tensions in the Middle East, the Cold War. Like,
Yeah, absolutely. That is actually not what happens, folks. The plane lands in a tree. Matt, Scott, and T-Bob are still alive, somehow without a scratch. And so I'm going to nominate them all for a Slyrax Ragdoll Award here.
100% on the Slyrax.
Switchblade appears and opens fire on that group of natives who had pushed the plane over and appears to open fire for no particular reason at all.
Or racism.
Could be. Yep. Buddy Hawk's nomination then.
Yeah. Or then again, Switchblade will frequently fire at folks for no reason at all. So it could just be a hatred of humanity in general. Maybe it's not racism. Maybe it's just hatred.
Sly and Vanessa jump in with Piranha, and they also open fire.
So if you notice, like, one of the shots, because this one scene basically has a lot of natives being hit. One of the natives gets hit squarely in the ass. So we're
and it's like steam or smoke coming off his butt as he's running away.
Yes.
Yeah. I haven't seen a lot of people get hit by lasers run away while their flesh is smoking. So it seems more like a cartoon effect than anything in real life. But anyways, what's fun is that Sly gets hit with sleep darts from the tribes people and almost drives Piranha off a cliff. Fortunately, Vanessa in the sidecar grabs the wheel, puts the brakes on just in time, and she says, just like Rax, he falls asleep and I wind up with the nightmare. Is this a reference to the time he got her pregnant? Is this the mistake she was referencing?
I mean, she did say he was the biggest mistake in the world.
There you go. Switchblade lands and Miles reveals himself wearing a native mask and says, stop, I command you. I am your fire god. And they start worshiping him, and I give him a Buddy Hawks nomination.
100%. So, Adam, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Where did he get that mask from? Some local curio store? And
or did he make it out of construction paper?
Right. And this was not the original plan. Did he know things were going to go this way? So he actually did this in case he needed to pull, like I said before, a Belloc? Or is this a Hail Mary? Because he didn't expect things to go down this way. It's like, oh, shit. None of this is what I expected. Let me get my mask on that I brought just in case.
I'm confused. Help me out here. What was the plan again? Miles wanted to steal Matt's gemstone?
Yes.
Okay, that's why we're here. So many questions. I guess the idea then was that Matt called the New Guinea Prime Minister's office and said, hey, I'm coming with a gemstone.
Right.
Clear the way for customs for me. And then that's how the information got out. So someone was on the take in the New Guinea Prime Minister's office.
Yeah.
Called Miles and said, hey, there's a dude coming in with a crystal. I mean, everyone knows who Matt Trakker is. So if Miles is like, oh, Matt Trakker, he's got a crystal, must be valuable. There is nothing laid out in this episode that explains why Venom is really here, why they want the crystal, how they found out about it. No setup or information whatsoever.
No, there's not. And again, there's so many good places where a connection would be amazing. Like, Venom needs the crystal because their duplicate is failing them for charging their own masks. Like,
great.
Venom had gotten a hold of this duplicate of a crystal somehow, like through Andrew Trakker's father. There's easy ways to cinch it, to make it really work well together. And again, we're just kind of inferring across the board here.
Yeah, no, I mean, this goes back to there is so much world building that could have been done in this episode that they just whiff on.
Yeah.
They just don't even, they swing and they miss by a mile.
Yeah.
I mean, what would have had to have happened, though, is that Venom would have had to have discovered that Matt is somehow connected to Mask if he has this crystal of power, which, okay, just over halfway through the series, could have been an interesting turning point.
Yeah. You can actually get around that by, Trakker Industries is a major supplier of weapons to Mask. It's actually a weird leap to think of the idea of a billionaire being the head of a paramilitary group. But you could easily see a billionaire being a supplier of materiel to a paramilitary group.
Absolutely.
So you don't have to give away the ghost of the secret identities, but also create that connective tissue. I don't know, it just helps us get invested into the world even more.
But they do none of that.
Nope.
What happens next is that, for no reason whatsoever, the Mask jet shows up. The big, giant, blue vehicle-carrying Mask jet shows up. Alex, Dusty, and Brad are on board.
So, few things. We have to either believe that there was a time jump of at least 11 hours, or Matt had said, you know what, we need the Mask jet following just in case. Or related, there's always Mask agents, like a standby alert team flying around when Matt travels, just in case.
Well, and then this would take me back to what I said very early on when he got his first Father of the Year nomination this episode, where it's like, why would you bring Scott to a place where Venom might be operating? The only reason you'd have Mask in their Mask jet, just kind of following where Matt goes, is in the event Venom shows up.
Or it's like, oh, because I'm a billionaire and I need security.
In which case, they've done a pretty bad job because he crashed in his plane, could have died there. Natives pushed his plane off a cliff, could have died there. And now they're, Matt, Scott, and T-Bob are running through the jungle, pursued by the natives. Switchblades also firing in them. They reach a river. They can't cross because of crocodiles. They turn T-Bob into a bridge to cross the river. But the bug inside T-Bob causes him to wiggle, which sends Matt and Scott into the water, about to be eaten by a croc. Again, the team trailing Matt to protect him, to this point, has done an awful job.
Brad was allowed to fly, which is why they were delayed by a couple hours.
Okay. Well, speaking of that crocodile, just as they're about to be eaten by it, which, by the way, Matt does nothing to try to save Scott. He just holds him and says, Scott! T-Bob actually sticks his foot out to hold the croc's mouth open.
He's got his angry eyes on, too. In this,
he does.
It's like,
really
you
does.
fucked with the wrong family, asshole. Like, I don't know what happens to that croc, but I don't think it's going to be pretty.
I feel bad for the crocodile. It was just living its life.
Just living its life.
Doing its crocodile thing. And then here comes Matt, Scott, and T-Bob.
Ooh.
And it probably wasn't trying to eat them. It was just swimming along and happened to open its mouth. Well, they're saved, of course. Matt, Scott, and T-Bob are running through the jungle, and they arrived at a walled-off tribal village. They kind of hit a dead end, and they're surrounded by these angry natives tribes people. They're about to be killed when they lean against a stone wall, which spins around, kind of, Indiana Jones style, and it brings them face to face with the Mudmen from earlier.
So this is actually, like, in the world of it, a pretty terrifying scene, jumping from the pan into the fire. Given that we know momentarily this is Warago's village, it's also weird that the chief doesn't come up to see these random white folk being tied up.
I agree completely. I guess he just hangs out in the temple and waits for Broken Bird to fall from sky with power crystal.
Yeah. Someone's going to return it. By the way, they're white.
Yeah.
Did I mention they're white? If you see some white people come by, just bring them into the temple.
They're the ones inside the Broken Bird.
Yeah.
And by Broken Bird, I mean plane. The things in the sky.
That explode when they hit the ground, according to my knowledge of them.
So stay away, wait for them to explode, and then we wanted to give up the other crystal. Venom, by the way, arrives outside this native village to attack. Miles yells at, I guess the thing is, he has his tribe of natives.
Yes.
Versus this tribe.
Yes.
Something we have to infer by watching the episode that is not explicitly stated. But he yells at them to attack when he gives the order. Why does he need them to attack?
I have no idea because, my thought was Miles could blaze the village down with Switchblade.
One missile from Switchblade destroys the village.
Yeah. Is he power tripping again? Is it's like, I get to order these folks around?
Just awful episode.
Yeah.
Just so much interesting stuff and such a poorly written episode.
Yeah.
So inside the village, Matt, Scott, and T-Bob are tied to posts. Star Wars. The bug inside T-Bob causes him to dance around, which causes a distraction. Matt unties himself and Scott, and then he lifts up T-Bob, who is still tied to the post, and they run away towards the temple. How strong is Matt? T-Bob is, 700 pounds?
Yeah.
Plus the weight of a giant tree.
We know from past episodes that Scott juices, so where do you think he got the steroids from?
The power crystal, I guess. They do run inside that temple from the beginning of the episode, and he holds out the crystal and says, "I'm returning this to you." And Warago says, "You? Andrew?" And Matt says, "I am his son, my father. He has left us." Which contradicts what we thought earlier, which is that Matt, as a child with his dad, must have gone to the village.
Well, it is super hard because Matt said he told this to Warago.
Right.
And because of the art direction, the art direction was not well thought through here to say, let's just make Andrew Matt with a mustache. The confusion on Warago's part is understandable, given that it just looks like Andrew shaved.
Yeah.
And maybe Matt had a lot of pimples when he met Warago a couple decades ago. The confusion that's in this has a lot to do with the writing and the art direction. I will say, you were right. There's an ambiguity here about what does he left us mean. Assuming it was done to say that he passed away, this is the right way in an 80s cartoon to state that. It's understated, but it's oh, he's left us. But that said, I kind of sort of wanted the line to be like, my father, he has left us. He lives in West Palm Beach now. The altitude wasn't good for him anymore, so he wanted something where it hydrates the skin.
Warago says, "He was a good man. Many seasons ago, he saved my life. You have used it for good?" And Matt says, "But of course." Now, this is referring to the crystal, so let's discuss. Has Matt really used the crystal for good? Yes. Now, how is Venom powering its vehicles and masks? Is it the crystal as well? So he's used it for good. Venom has used it for bad. Matt and Miles worked together to develop the mask technology, which means that Miles knows the crystal exists. How many lives have been lost as a result of the unleashing of the power crystal's power through these masks? The property destruction? I don't know if we can say he's used it for good.
So I'm going to fall back on Winston in this case, Adam. If someone asks you if you were a god, you say yes. So I don't think Matt really wants to recount the number of times an earthquake machine or a Venom sub blowing up cost the lives of many, many people because of the existence of this crystal. It's like, you've done good with it? Of course. Of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
What about the bad people outside my village? Yeah, I don't know how they got their... I don't know how they got their crystal. They must have gotten it from some other tribe, I guess. A man runs in and says something to the chief in the native language, and I guess Matt speaks it because he responds, "Yes, my enemies are after me. I need your help." And so what happens is they're trapped in this temple, completely surrounded. There's too many to defeat. The masked jet shows up. Rhino fires down from inside the jet. You'd think they'd put weapons on the jet itself, but I guess it's not necessary.
I think Alex doesn't like it to be easy. He wants to fire with a challenge. Because we've seen this before when they were in India, I think, when he's parachuting and shooting at the elephants. He has experience firing at stuff while landing.
Yeah. Now, Alex's line, by the way, is, "Tally ho, mow him down." Is Alex suggesting that they massacre the natives?
Typical imperialism and a Buddy Hawk's nom for him.
Oh, for sure. Now, continuing potentially on the Buddy Hawk's nomination pathway, Brad uses Hocus Pocus to make the natives think that their giant god has shown up and is telling them to run away.
Okay, we're going to talk about this again in a moment. But if the implication from Alex is to murder the natives, maybe Brad is just as horrified as we are. In which case, he sees the use of a god to scare them off as actually the far lesser of two evils.
Sure.
So he's like, oh my God, we're not going to mow him down, Alex. What the fuck? Yeah, it's a god. Oh, they ran away. I'm sorry, Alex. You don't get your blood this time.
Gotcha. Okay. Thanks, Brad.
Hold on, but hold that thought, okay?
Yeah. Well, now Dusty uses the electric ouch to shoot Sly off Piranha. Sly flies hundreds of feet into the air and into the jungle, where he is then chased by a warthog. This is a ragdoll award for sure.
Yeah. This is more butt shots.
Yeah.
It's a square aimed at his butt. He goes flying. Yeah. We've seen this from Dusty before. He does like shooting people's butts, specifically Sly's and Vanessa's.
Yeah, there's a lot of butt aimed laser blasts in this show.
Yeah, there is.
I have to say. And amazingly, the laser blasts, they're set to stun.
Or burn.
Or they're set to burn, not kill. There's a setting in between stun and kill, which is actually burn, which they rarely talk about in science fiction franchises.
It's true. It's really true. I want them injured.
It's char. Set phases to char. Back to Brad. He opens fire on the natives at the door of the temple, causing them to flee.
So here's the thing. This was like, at first when I was going through the episode, I was like, I can defend Brad. And then like, no, I can't.
Nope.
Because now he doesn't seem so concerned with the native safety. The Buddy Hawks is back in the table. And I do want to point out, the main cannon on Brad's Condor is an antimatter ray. So, Adam, do you know what happens when matter meets antimatter?
Enlighten us.
It causes an explosion.
It must be a very isolated antimatter ray because it just caused little bursts of like explosions on the ground.
Although he's also wrecking Warago's like temple hut.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. Venom flies away. I guess they assume they're defeated and they fly away. And everything turns out fine. They're inside the temple. Things are good. But the bug is still inside T-Bob. And so he dances around, which causes everyone, including all the tribes people, to laugh at him. So I guess we're just going to go ahead and do another Roy Batty nom here at the end of the episode.
Roy Batty at the end.
And that is it. That's the episode of Mask, a show purportedly about good guys who drive vehicles that transform into weaponized vehicles who wear masks of power versus bad guys with the same exact set of tools. And in this episode, there was a minute total of that stuff in it. So let's see if the more you know is going to redeem the episode in any way. We're back at the village with Warago. Scott sees some berries growing and he wants to eat one. Turns out they're poisonous. Matt tells him they could give you a pretty good stomachache. Or worse. So the lesson is don't eat berries. Got it. What's worse? A pretty good stomachache or worse? Death, I guess. Anything in between that?
Explosive diarrhea. Okay, so it's clearly Warago because he says his name, but Warago was previously able to speak English. Here he's speaking in his native tongue. So Matt has to translate for him by saying, I think what Warago is trying to say is those berries are poisonous. Right. And then they say, thanks, Warago. That's good advice in any language. So they all start laughing, including Warago. So now he understands English again in these 30 seconds. I think that Warago and Matt were fucking with Scott. And
totally.
This is actually berries that Matt wants to pick for Brad.
Because, yeah, they could give you a pretty good stomachache or diarrhea or death or hallucinogenic enlightenment.
The real power of the crystal is now known.
It was never the crystal. It was the berries. Well, and we are out. Let's take a look at our awards. The Roy Batty Award.
There was a few, but to me it was everyone laughing at T-Bob at the end. He's been suffering from a debilitating bug And for a while. And even the natives think it's funny. So it's like, what a funny little robot. And he's just in pain, really.
The Slyrax Ragdoll Award.
Well, we did get that butt shot with Slyrax.
I mean, he flew hundreds
He did.
of meters through the air and crashed down in the jungle. That's a classic Slyrax should be dead moment.
It should be. And honestly, at any other episode, for me, it would be the winner. But T-Bob and Scott in the jet fuselage, crashing to the ground.
No, not the ground.
Into a tree. In a tree with shit flying all around. Like, they should all be dead.
Yeah. I agree with you on that, but I do like Slyrax with a classic ragdoll moment.
It's true. It's a good one.
So, Matt, Father of the Year award.
I'm going to go off the beaten track because it kind of occurred to me thinking through, I've done some electrical work in my own home, opening up the panel and hooking up new circuit breakers. So the idea of sending Scott to not turn off, but to unplug the breaker panel is not something I would ask my kid to do, especially when the juice is live. So this feels really neglectful to be like, yeah, just rip out that wire from that breaker panel right there to help us out. It's like, okay.
Yeah, and also Scott's instructions, because they come up here when he tells T-Bob, I'll pull the red one, you pull the green one. Yeah, no, I agree with you on that one. I thought just bringing Scott with him on the trip alone was a Father of the Year moment, but putting him at risk of electrocution.
Yeah,
sure. The Buddy Hawks Award for this episode. I meant to say this at the top of the episode, but we are now bringing guest hosts onto the show. We decided not to bring a guest host onto the show this episode because of how flagrantly Buddy Hawks awarded this episode is. So I guess let's dive in. What's not actually a Buddy Hawks nomination in this episode?
I'm going to make an argument that T-Bob actually gets the Buddy Hawks easily, but Matt and Scott actually don't. As far as I can tell, they don't say anything, and they're going out to meet the tribe, which is not racist unto itself.
Okay.
Dusty, as far as I can tell, makes no statement that he is attacking the tribe.
True.
And Vanessa doesn't do anything, as far as I can tell, to go after something that's flagrantly offensive. That's it. That is me putting my fingernails into the dirt to really sift through this stuff, because everyone else gets hit with a nomination.
All right. I'll go with you on that one, including the writers.
Oh, the writers all the way.
The writer of this episode, it's just across the board.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the characters themselves who are Buddy Hawks nominees.
Yeah. We have the statements coming from T-Bob, which is kind of his typical stuff. But then I have this 4-way tie that is all relatively tied to the same thing. Yeah, Miles Mayhem, and this is actually in order of how they do this. Miles Mayhem, Slyrax, Alex Sector, and Brad Turner. Each of them either opened fire on natives or made the statement, mow them down. Maybe Alex was meaning Venom, but you know what? Maybe be a little more precise with the language next time, Alex, because you mow grass down, which is there's numerous of. There was very few Venom agents and a lot of natives of that quote-unquote enemy tribe.
Yeah, I'm Alex Sector all the way on this one. For the Buddy Hawks, mow him down is just like there's simply blades of grass in his eyes to be chopped down. Not even humans.
I have to balance this out because there's one thing where someone yells something racist. There's another thing when people attack other people for being racist. So, like, Alex, as far as I could tell, well, I guess he did fire with Rhino. You're right.
Yes,
I guess he's the first among equals, I suppose.
He really is.
All right. Good job,
Congratulations, Alex.
For pulling it out at the end.
Yes.
I do have one honorable mention, which are the natives themselves. One tribe just pushed Matt's plane over the cliff. The other tribe tied Matt, Scott, and T-Bob to stakes. Now, it could be because these were foreign invaders. I can't quite be sure, but
I'm going to give the natives a pass on this one.
Yeah, I think that's fair. We're talking about a drop compared to an ocean.
Well, is this episode panda poo? I'm going to let you go ahead and dive in to what I know is a complex, nuanced, and multi-layered look at this episode. I'm going to say yes.
Yeah. And that's where we're going to end up. Yes, this is panda poo. I really wanted to think through, it's not so much what this episode is, it's what it could have been. And I think it probably just deepens the panda poo of the whole thing, because the characterizations of the natives in this episode are terrible. Mm-hmm. It's like, hey,
Yep.
Congratulations, you've walked back into this territory, writers. When you separate out like a lot of like Venom's plan actually does hang together in a lot of ways and is not panda poo.
I'm okay. I have to call foul on that one.
Yeah.
What plan?
So
they're there and that's it. They want a gem for some unknown reason and they learned about it for some unknown
They have
method.
Spies and insiders on Matt, and they did enough thinking through to create...
Allegedly.
Well, they know, at least the customs agent.
Okay.
I agree. There's a lot of stringing together here, but they put Vanessa undercover. They had that autopilot control device. So there's a lot of pre-planning that goes into that. And, even Vanessa and Sly following them, like they didn't intend for the jet to crash. So they actually had basically like this calculation that was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And
so if we understood why Miles wanted the crystal.
Yeah, I agree.
If we understood what was at stake for the greater world, if he got his hands on the crystal, and if they actually threaded together any kind of a plot for how Venom learned all this stuff in the first place, then I'd agree with you.
The motivation is left entirely to speculation. So it's really just like, hey, I don't know, I could be reaching for a writer's defense award that should never occur. At least this time it's not happenstance. Actually, there's some indication that Venom is doing some thoughtful execution here. Yeah. And the reality is, if Sly and Vanessa hadn't fought before they were about to make love, they would have caught Matt, Scott, and T-Bob. And honestly, if it's not for the Deus Ex mask jet, Venom wins this one.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
It's like because a lot of times we'll award the panda poo based on Venom fucking up, and I can see myself a way that Venom actually was executing competently. Clearly, a lot of spots where they're not. Venom, like Miles's curio mask that he got made of paper mache. Sly shooting natives for some reason. It's like, nope, you're just racist now. And it goes to this whole thing about so many missed opportunities in this episode. You get a little bit of this lore of the mask powers from the crystal. We get a little bit about Matt's dad. And how is he connected to it all? We don't ever do this connection between, like I said at the top, the Mudmen masks and the masks themselves with powers. Like there could have been something primal and cool and connected. So yeah, this is panda poo. There's so many ways it actually could have been great if not for the blatant racism and the real misses left, right, and center.
Agreed. And, I'm curious about the next episode because it also has potential to be great.
Yes.
Because it's episode 40. It's called Eyes of the Skull. Venom leader Miles Mayhem uses an ancient crystal skull that allows X-ray-like vision to see through Matt Trakker's mask and discover his identity. Mayhem then kidnaps Scott Trakker for ransom. This is all great and continues to grow the world of Mask if Miles finally finds out who the leader of Mask is.
It does. I'm looking forward to us watching it and really digging into it because I think, again, we're seeing a lot of smart things happen, which is great because you want Venom to be credible. We'll see, basically. Let's see what happens with this one. I have a general question because I'm thinking now we're turning the page onto 40. We're hitting a new set of episodes. The 30s felt like a bit of a slog. Am I wrong in thinking that?
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways, maybe with an exception or so, it felt like they strayed from what the formula of a Mask episode is.
Yeah.
I mean, there were early ones which were dumb to a degree, but they all fit the formula. Venom does the thing. Mask is assembled. We see the vehicles. They got their helmets, preferably some escape scenes for the Mask agents. A couple of Venom Mask battles, and we're out. And they were like, yeah, okay, cool, great, this is fun. The 30s were overall a miss for the show. So I'm hopeful for the 40s. Also, I know that we're going to get some new characters coming in, so that'll be interesting as well.
I'm looking forward to it as well.
Same. I hope you're all looking forward to continuing the ride with us and our guest hosts who will be joining us. But for the time being, this podcast has to transform and head back to HQ. I am Adam Moore.
And I am PJ McNerney.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
The Mobile Armored Podcast Show is written, produced, and edited by Adam Moore and PJ McNerney.